Okay, y'all. So tonight we're very excited. It's Fruit Week, and we are celebrating all fruit, fresh fruit, frozen fruit. But with it being kind of spring, late spring, I guess summer, coming borderline summer now, there's a lot of great fruit on the shelves. But all year round, there's a lot of great frozen fruit, which is a great intro to our wonderful sponsor for tonight, the Washington Red Raspberry Council, who's been supplying us with some really great frozen raspberries. And supporting us through these classes. So thank you so much. And we get to use some frozen raspberries in our dishes tonight. I've been having a lot of fun with those over the past few weeks. And if you've been here, they're just so beautiful, so flavorful. And hopefully I've been getting your creative juices flowing with them too. So I'm gonna be showing you fruit and some more savory applications as well as sweet. And then I have our guest, tonight, Renee Floer, who's also works at NOCHI with us. And Renee will be making a fun mocktail, an alcohol-free beverage for those of you that don't want to drink or might have kids or just like some alcohol-free beverages here and there, which I think is great because especially during quarantine, I think sometimes people tend to sometimes get a little heavy on the alcohol. So it's nice to have some really refreshing, awesome substitutes for us. And tonight I'm going to make a dressing / marinade. It can be really diverse with mango. I'm gonna use it on chicken, but you can really use it on any protein, vegetarian or not, fish, pork. It would be great just as a dressing or sauce in of its own, even without any meat or seafood. And then I'm gonna make just some really easy sides. The idea here is a quick marinade you can throw together and use for multiple purposes. And then I'm just gonna roast some corn and okra to go with that. And really, I would encourage you, if you have any veggies or anything going bad in the fridge, it's a good time to use it up, or the freezer. So I'm going with corn and okra, which I went ahead and shucked the corn. So if you haven't done that yet, you can do that. I also rinsed and dried my okra, which I have here in a bowl. So you wanna pat it nice and dry, because it will get crispier in the oven. So if you ever had roast okra, I really like it because it's not slimy like okra tends to get. I'm also gonna show a fun raspberry and coconut chia pudding. If you've never had chia pudding before, that's kind of a really fun, make ahead, easy breakfast or snack, which I'll talk about more in a little bit. And then Renee, do you wanna tell them what you're gonna make? You're on mute, hold on. We gotta unmute you.
Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm going to be making, just showing y'all how to do a really simple raspberry lemonade. And basically, we're going to boil down some delicious frozen Washington red raspberries and make a syrup out of it. Actually, more of a juice. We're just getting the juice out of the raspberries. And then we are going to add that to some of our favorite lemonade and muddle some basil in it and make a delicious non-alcoholic, not frozen, but a raspberry basil lemonade that is super delicious. And if you want to add alcohol to it, you can, but it definitely doesn't need it.
Cool. Can you make it frozen if you want to?
You could absolutely make it frozen. It just totally depends on what you're in the mood for. What I did is I actually made some last night to test it out and then put it in the fridge, and it was the most delicious breakfast drink in the world. So.
And you have a lemon dress. Is that a lemon dress or?
Yeah, I wore lemon dresses for the lemonade raspberry.
I love it. And I wore yellow. It must be a yellow kind of day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Renee. And with that, with our non-alcoholic version, I always bring in my Uncle Bill, who's a sommelier. Hi, Uncle Bill, are you there? He's going to give us some wine pairings to go with today.
Yes, Chef Leah, we're here in California.
Hi, Uncle Bill.
So I hope everybody knows that today is National Chardonnay Day.
Ooh.
Chardonnay is our most famous grape here, most popular grape in the whole United States. And it's great worldwide, many different styles. And let me tell you that I once had Chardonnay with steak. And people will look at you and say, why? That's a big white wine with wouldn't that steak deserve a beautiful red wine? Well, normally it would, but it just goes to show the validity of rule number 2. There are no rules. And that's what we're going to say about Chardonnay today, because we're going to talk about some other groups. grapes that are really beautiful. First one is a red wine from France, Beaujolais. Beaujolais, in case anybody's interested. And talk about two levels of Beaujolais, Village, and a Cru Beaujolais. There are 10 Cru Beaujolais. Those are the top Beaujolais. Not expensive, $25 or less. Beautiful wine, kind of similar to a Pinot Noir, but it's a different grape. It's Gamay, Gamay. Beautiful area if you ever get a chance to visit. It's just a little bit outside of Lyon in France. And some people call Lyon the gastronomical capital of France. So that's our red wine for today. And the white wine, I was going to go with a Gewürztraminer. Somebody a few weeks ago made me spell it here. And I'm not going to do that again because we just opened a terrific white wine from Argentina called Torrontés. This is a really wonderful wine. And somebody's spelling it for me. Thank you very much, Megan Davenport. Gewürztraminer. But Torrontés, Torrontes, from Argentina. It is imported here. You might be able to find it in Trader Joe's. It's just a terrific wine. And Helen has it in her glass right now. And please give it a try. Again, it's not very expensive. And it's just gorgeous. So the two wines for tonight, Beaujolais and Torrontés. So thank you very much, Chef Leah. And back to you.
Thank you, Uncle Bill. Cheers, everyone. Pour yourself a glass of wine. Aunt Helen says, or have whatever you like, whatever beverage you like. Aunt Helen says that it's good to have a glass of wine because it brings you joy, especially while cooking. So I poured mine, and I look forward to cooking with y'all. My sous chef, Jax, also known as my floor cleaner, is doing his job cleaning the floor. Apparently, I already dropped something on it. So if you hear anything in the background, it's probably Jax. If I trip, it's probably Jax. Also, on occasion, I'm known to get dropped off here because of Zoom or the internet or whatever it is. If that happens, then I promise I will be back on as quickly as possible. Don't fret. Okay, so now we're going to get started with our dressing / sauce, mango raspberry, just a mango. You could do mango raspberry, rather. It's sesame mango. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 425 for the okra and the corn. So go ahead and do that if you haven't.
And in case anyone who has Hawkeyes is following along with the recipes, the okra recipe I know originally calls for 450 and the corn calls for a range. So Leah, I'm guessing you're putting it at 425 to be right at a happy medium so you can do them both.
You've got it.
Always, very attentive, and some of y'all always ask, so I want to make sure there's no confusion. If you're just following one of these recipes rather than the other, feel free to go with the specified one.
Yeah, and you can always make adjustments. I always call that using your chefness. So don't fret too much about the oven temperatures. You might just need to adjust the cooking time, or if something gets a little too dark, turn it down. Usually you can make adjustments. All right, so I'm going to start here with a fresh mango because I've seen mangoes in abundance at the stores lately. So I'm going to cut the cheeks. I've seen me probably do this a few times. I've been on here before. It's like a teardrop shaped seed in the middle of the mango. So I'm going to cut down each side of the mango here around that teardrop shaped seed and try to get up as close to it as possible. This is a nice ripe mango. You could also use frozen mango. Kind of like the frozen raspberries. Frozen fruit is really great because it's picked at peak ripeness. So it's always going to be really sweet. Whereas the stuff you buy fresh at the store is generally picked underripe because it needs to ripen. It travels across states, across countries. And if they picked it when it was ripe, it would be rotten by the time it got to you. So, but frozen is generally processed and frozen when it's already ripe. So it's generally going to be sweeter. All right, I put my mango pit to the side because I tend to gnaw on that. That's my favorite part. But I got my mango halves. Let me move this blender top out of the way here. And I cut off the two skinnier sides around the seed just to get as much meat out of there as I can. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut the skin off now. It's a great time to use that chef knife. I don't have to do too much because I'm gonna blend it. So just like a rough chop.
Hey Leah, somebody asked, how do you know when a mango is ripe?
It's soft to the touch. Good question. It's like an avocado or like a pea. A little one. And to ripen it, you want to leave it out at room temperature. And just like an avocado or a peach, if it reaches ripeness and you're not ready to eat it yet, go ahead and put it in your fridge, and it'll really, really slow down the ripening process. Let me just grab a bowl for this so I can gnaw on it later. Leave it out until it's ready to go. All right, and then I'm going to, since I'm just cutting it out of the skin here, just a rough chop, I'm gonna cut this in half lengthwise, and then I'm going to scoop out the skin, cut right next to the skin. You can also scoop it out with a spoon, just so you know if it's soft enough. If it's not soft enough, you won't be able to do that. So now I have my mango chunks. I'm just gonna give them a quick rough chop. This smells really good. This mango has been just begging to be eaten, and I was inspired by it, which is where this recipe came from, as it was sitting there getting ripe. And that's a lot of what I'm doing today is I just kind of need to clean some stuff out of my fridge. So I was like, I'll roast this okra and I'll do this corn. I mean, I have potatoes I could have done, but that's why I encourage you to use whatever you have around. I love this meal because it's just like you make a protein and whatever sides you have, and when in doubt, roast. It would also be great to grill. These recipes could pretty much all be grilled today. If I could take this out to the grill, I might even do that, but I don't get good internet out there. But when in doubt, I have a nice starchy veg. I have a nice veg that you can grill, roast, whatever you want, and then a nice sauce with a protein. And the sauce is really what I'm spending the most time on. Otherwise, this comes together very quickly. So I have my mango in here, and now I'm going to add vinegar. I'm gonna use rice vinegar, but you can really use any cider, red wine, white wine. And I'm gonna do a 1/4 cup. Fun fact, that's 4 tablespoons. So I'm just gonna use my tablespoon measure for all of this. And then keep in mind that all mangoes aren't created equal, all vinegars and everything aren't created equal. So we'll adjust it again if the recipe's not perfect. And that's, again, what I call using your chefness. Don't rely on recipes to be perfect. They might need a little work. Okay, I'm also gonna do 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. It's gonna give it a kind of nice toasty flavor. That was fish sauce, all right. That was a lot of fish sauce, that's okay. I was gonna do a little fish sauce and a little soy sauce, 2 tablespoons, and instead of sesame oil, I just did fish sauce. That's all right. So I'm just doing half fish sauce and half soy sauce. I wouldn't go half and half. It's gonna be a little heavy on the fish sauce. I would maybe do like a teaspoon of fish sauce. That'll be fine for me, but I wouldn't recommend that for you. Now I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. The soy sauce and the fish sauce are gonna give it some of that umami flavor and add some saltiness to it as well. So there's my 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, just to use this up.
Leah, somebody asked in the chat, could you use ponzu instead of soy sauce?
Absolutely, it would be quite delicious because it's got like a citrusy flavor to it. And then I'm gonna do a 2nd tablespoon of sesame oil. I'm gonna add some regular oil too, because sesame oil can be quite strong, and if I did all sesame oil in here, you'd probably think it was a little too strong. So I'm just adding a little for flavor. And then you can do a more neutral oil, like a canola oil, if you have a fairly neutral olive oil. Again, about a 1/4 cup, so 4 tablespoons if you just want to continue using your tablespoon measure. And the reason I'm using so much oil is because this is based off a vinaigrette recipe. And vinaigrettes are typically 3 parts oil to 1 part acid. And so it's going to be pretty heavy on oil. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be to have the mango in there that I'm pureeing, and I talk about pureeing fruit into dressings as a fun thing to do. But they are generally heavy on oil, and it's going to give it a great mouthfeel. Okay, I'm gonna add a couple red pepper flakes. It's, you know, one of my favorite ingredients for a little heat. You could even add like fresh jalapeno, cayenne, hot sauce, and if you don't like spicy, just omit it. And then I'm gonna add a little fresh ginger as well. You can peel it with a peeler. I peel it with the side of a spoon as well to get all the little nooks and crannies in the piece of ginger. And then you can, it depends on how good your blender is, but you can give it a rough chop. You have a really good blender like the Vitamix that I have, or you can grate it if you want, if you don't have a great blender, or you can just rough chop it. You know, you can give it a finer chop by hand first and then put it in the blender. I wouldn't leave the whole chunk because it's a lot harder than the rest of the ingredients, so it's going to take longer for it to blend. So I'm just finishing peeling this. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies in this ginger. I've been using fresh ginger a lot if you've been on here. I really love it. I just feel like, especially for kind of spring ingredients, it's just bright and refreshing, and it stays forever. I just keep it like with my garlic and onions. You can freeze it, and I think Rainey said you freeze yours, right?
I love using ginger, Leah. This is Renee, and I don't freeze mine, but I just buy a bunch of it at once, and you can make syrups out of it. It's good for everything.
Yeah, I've never tried freezing ginger for using it fresh, but I love to put ginger in my smoothie, like fresh ginger in my smoothies. And what I'll usually do for smoothies is put together little kits so I can just dump them into the blender, and I always just put in like a knob. Tori, your question about ginger, I believe the recipe said a tablespoon of minced fresh.
You could use ginger powder too. Probably maybe use a teaspoon of that. Wouldn't want to, you never convert from fresh to dried. With herbs, it's a third dried of what you would do fresh. And so that would be, if there's a tablespoon, it would be a tablespoon of fresh, it would be a teaspoon dried. And I'd say with ginger, it's probably about the same. I'm gonna wait to add salt because the soy sauce and fish sauce are salty. And then I'll blend it and I'll taste it and see how it tastes after. I'll do just a touch of black pepper in there, and I'm gonna go ahead and blend it together and taste it. And I might need to add some water to thin it out. I'm probably going to need to. I'm just gonna add a little bit, a tablespoon or two for now, just to get it going, and then I can thin it out as needed. So let's go ahead and get this blending. You can also use an immersion blender for this. Great, that looks great. I love it. It's nice and thick and creamy. Let me taste it, see if I need to adjust the seasoning at all. I don't need any salt. I'm getting ginger, a nice bit of sesame. I don't need any sweetener because my mango is plenty sweet. If your mango was underripe, you might want to add a touch of sugar or honey just to bring out the sweetness. But actually, this is really great. I don't think I need to make any adjustments for this. So what I'm going to do now is, let me just throw this, pour a little of this over my chicken to marinate. And you can even do this overnight. You know, it'll just really take on the flavor. And then I'm going to save the rest because I'm going to use it to sauce my chicken and kind of glaze it a little. You could also use this, I would probably thin it a little more, but this would be a great dressing on salad. So this is pretty diverse. Okay, so I love the color too, nice and bright. You know, we are talking about raspberries, and raspberries could go would be actually really good, even a combination of the two.
Leah, how long
sweeter though? What's that?
can you keep the dressing?
Dressing? Refrigerated, I would say probably 4 days or so, just because you have all the fresh mango in there. You know, taste it, look for any signs of mold. It should last you, I think, at least 4 days.
I would guess that it would get a little like fermenty tasting before it got molded too. So that would be another thing you could check for, like before it gets moldy and obviously unsafe to eat, you could just do a little sniff test, and if it starts to smell a tiny bit fermenty, it's probably harmless. But when I say fermenty, it's like, you know, like the way that pickles start to smell.
Or vinegary, yeah.
Yeah, a little vinegary. I also wanted to say a couple tips from the chat. Megan says she keeps ginger in the freezer and grates it as needed with a microplane. And Wendy says she has some ginger preserved in some way by a Japanese friend of her mom's. It seems to be in a brine of some sort. She said, can anyone shed some light as this is wonderfully preserved and I'm running low? Wendy, I'm curious, does it taste kind of like pickled ginger when you get it at like a sushi restaurant? Because that, I don't know. I wish I knew how they made that. That stuff's delicious. She said not at all. Huh, that's interesting.
I wonder, yeah, it's actually fermented. I bet it's some kind of vinegar or brine that she uses with it.
Yeah, Wendy, I would maybe suggest does it taste a tiny bit bit funky, sort of like sauerkraut? Not sauerkraut, because cabbage has its own flavor, but if it tastes a tiny bit funky like that, you might even look up like a sauerkraut technique and apply it to ginger. Because all you have to do is basically, it's just salt it by weight.
Yum, yum, yum. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on, let my chicken sit out at room temp because it's usually better to sear meat after sitting out at room temperature for a little bit, 30 minutes or so. So I'm just gonna leave it out. And in the meantime, I'm gonna make chia pudding. For this, I'm using coconut milk and raspberries. I'm gonna puree together to get a nice, fun pink color. You could leave them whole in there too if you want a little more texture, but I kind of wanted the smoothness here. And you can mix and match flavors, fresh, frozen, but I like the tartness of the raspberry, and I'm gonna add a little sugar just to sweeten it, and I think it goes really well with the coconut. So I'm just gonna blend this together in my little bullet really quick. I mean, look at that gorgeous color. Who doesn't want that for breakfast? That's a fun thing. Maybe your kids will like it. All right, or your adults like me. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and dump this in a bowl. Chias, if you never had chia pudding before, it's made with chia seeds, which are great. They have really healthy omega-3 fats, and they thicken it, kind of like what gelatin would do with Jell-O in a pudding, just by sitting in it overnight. This really does need to refrigerate. But like I said, it's such an easy make-ahead dish. With any meal, especially breakfast, I always think of 3 things to help me feel full. Fiber, which the raspberries and the chia seeds are going to add fiber. And then fat, which I'm getting from the coconut milk as well as from the yogurt. And fiber, fat, and protein. And I'm getting protein from some from the chia seeds and also from the yogurt. This is going to be actually quite a fulfilling breakfast. So I'm just doing a little sugar, 1 tablespoon for 4 servings, so it's not a lot. It's just going to kind of highlight some of the coconut and raspberry flavors that we have in here. So I'm just going to mix this together. Really simple. There's all kinds of fun overnight oat recipes. Just so you know, don't blend in the chia seeds. I've done that before. I was just curious. They taste horrible. It gets very bitter when you blend them. So don't recommend that at all. Whereas with flaxseed, you want to blend it because that is what makes you able to digest all the healthy omega-3 fatty acids. But with chia seed, you don't need to do that. So I'm getting this really pretty pink color. I love it just by blending it. If you don't have a blender, it's a good thing to put on your next holiday list or buy yourself as a treat. And you know, some people ask me, and I really highly recommend spending the money and buying a Vitamix because it will never, you'll have it for years and years and years, and it just really is the best blender. I used to do the Ninja, which I really liked, but I found they kept breaking on me and I have to replace parts, and in the end, it really wasn't that cheap at all.
You could do what I did and find some friends who already have a Vitamix who are getting married, and then they'll definitely get a new Vitamix from their registry and give you their old one.
That's smart too. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and put this in some jars. This will make about 4 servings. I'm just using leftover jars I had in my fridge, or not my fridge, I had them in storage, you know, from like leftover condiments and such. So I tend to save those. And then, so you can pre-portion it. And then you'll have a quick, on-the-go, really simple breakfast. So pretty. Very pretty breakfast. All right, I'm gonna refrigerate these to let them set. Go ahead and wipe my edges off so those won't set on there. There you go. And clean up my mess. This is so pretty, isn't it? Look at that. Here, let me turn. No, the color isn't always great. Look at that color. Beautiful frozen raspberries. Okay, how simple was that? That's why I love chia pudding. It's really, really easy. Okay, I'm gonna go put this in my fridge. And I'm just gonna go ahead and put the lids on, and then I'm gonna put it in my fridge and come back to it at the end of class and see how far it's come to set. Okay, so that is going, and now I'm gonna go ahead and get my corn in the oven. I'm doing kind of a take very close to Mexican street corn if you've ever had it. It's really delicious if you haven't had it. And instead of butter, it uses mayonnaise. So with this recipe, I'm going to have a little bit of mayonnaise. I'm only using 2 ears of corn. The recipe calls for 5, so I'm cutting it down because it's just me. So I'm gonna put mayonnaise, and then I'm gonna add some Parmesan cheese for that nice umami. So delicious. I'm excited for this. Super simple too. And then I'm going to add some chili powder. A tablespoon. Well, actually a tablespoon for the full recipe. Half of that for half the recipe, which would be 1.5 teaspoons. And then I'm gonna chop some parsley. You can use any fresh herbs. You can also use dry herbs for this. So it would be 1 teaspoon of dry herbs since it's a tablespoon of fresh herbs. I have some parsley from my porch garden. And just chop up. I'm gonna save a little bit for garnish. You can do that too if you want. It just brightens up your plate right at the end. And this one, like I said, you can also do this on the grill. I'm just gonna wrap it in foil, and you could throw the foil wrapped corn right on your grill. If you want a little more color, cook the corn first, and then, let me just put this in here. Then you can toss it with the mayonnaise mixture after. You can't do that right straight on your grill. All right, so I'm gonna put this parsley, most of it anyway, in the bowl. Save a little for garnish. And I'm just gonna do a pinch of salt, a little salt, and some pepper. I'm gonna mix that together. I'm gonna rub it on my corn. I'm gonna wrap it and put it in the oven. So mayonnaise kind of replaces the butter. I don't know if you've all ever heard of recipes. There's actually a few recipes. It's become quite the trendy thing to do that with grilled cheese, where you use mayonnaise instead of butter. Really does actually. I'm not generally a big mayonnaise lover personally, but there are certain applications I think it does work well. If you've never tried a mayonnaise grilled cheese, do try it. It's a very.
Yeah, I was skeptical at first. I thought it might taste too mayonnaisey, but the oil in the mayonnaise helps it get toastier before it burns the way that butter would.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay. Somebody asked in the chat what type of salt you use. Sea salt, salt.
I actually use kosher salt. It's just available and cheap. You can use sea salt too, but for most everyday cooking, I think kosher salt is very easy to use. And I put it in a container so I can pinch it and see it rather than a shaker. So you can actually see how much you're using. So I'm just rubbing this mayonnaise mixture all over my corn. Gonna get it all up in there. And then I'm going to roll it in the foil. I picked corn because, you know, it's starting to come out in stores. This is actually from my CSA box. Corn's starting to really pop up around here. Kind of spring. Makes me think of spring and early summer. Great thing to grill. I love fresh corn on the cob. One of my favorite things. Get some good corn in Ohio. I miss that. All right, so now I'm just gonna roll it up in the foil. And I'm gonna put it right straight into my oven, right on the rack. I don't need a tray if you've wrapped it tightly. If it's not, put it on a tray so it doesn't drip butter everywhere. I'll check on it and make sure it's not doing that. But I'm gonna put this right in the oven. And then I'm gonna get my okra ready. And like I said, if you've never had roasted okra, I really like it because it gets crispy instead of slimy, which okra can be if you've never had it. So I rinsed it and I dried it really well. So I just kind of went with my towel in and dried it. So it'll get crispy. Anything that's gonna be too wet won't get nice and crispy for you. This is really simple. I'm just gonna toss it with salt and olive oil. That's that. And then the key here is put a very high temperature. If it's very big okra, you might want to cut it in half. Otherwise, you just need to watch the time and maybe adjust it. So I'm going to start with 15 minutes with this, and then I'll see how it's doing. I have one really big one in here. I'm just going to cut this one in half lengthwise. And you can even do that with all of them if you want. If you think about it, okra is technically a legume because it has these seeds that grow inside the pod. Interesting, right? Never thought of that. Okay, so I have my okra tossed with oil and salt, and I'm just gonna put that on a sheet tray. Super, super easy, and put it right in the oven. Yes, you could do this on a grill if you have a grill pan. All right, spread it out in a nice even layer. That's how it's gonna get crisp. You don't want them all crowding each other. If it's too crowded, get a bigger pan or use 2 pans. But the trick to getting crispy is having plenty of room for the air to circulate and doing it at a higher temperature. That's why we have our oven at a high temp. So I'm just gonna spread these out and then I'll shake them a few times through the cooking process. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer for 15 minutes. Check on my corn and that. And I might add a few minutes for that and the corn, depending on how they're both going. Okay, now I'm just gonna sear the chicken. So all I'm gonna do to sear my chicken is turn my pan. I have a cast iron here, which I like. A heavy bottom pan is good for searing, if not. If you only have nonstick, then fine, use it. If you have something that's not nonstick, it works best for searing. Because it'll really help it to get nice and hot and get that caramelization, the Maillard browning, as you would call it, with a non-stick option. So I'm getting my cast iron ready. I'm gonna get it nice and hot. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my fan on so it doesn't get too smoky in here. And as that, after that's done, I'm going to take my chicken out. I put a little oil in there. I might even just spray it with a little oil because there's a lot of oil in the marinade, so I don't really need much actually now that I'm thinking about it. And then I'm gonna get some nice color on the outside. If it's too dark, turn down the temperature on the pan. And since these are thick chicken breasts, I'm gonna sear them first, and I'm gonna put them in the oven to finish, to cook to the middle. If it's something thinner, like a thinner pork chop or like shrimp or fish, you don't need to worry about that. But a nice thick chicken breast, or if you have like chicken with a bone in it, then you want to finish it in the oven. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sear it. When you sear, you don't want to move it around too much in the pan. You just want to let it get color, release, and then turn it over. Put it in the oven, cook it to a temperature of 165 for chicken. And then I'm going to take it out and let it rest for a few minutes before I cut it up for a dish. That's that. That was like the easiest meal ever to put together. It's very, very simple. So I'm gonna get my pan hot. I'm gonna sear this. And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Renee to let her go over the drink with you. Renee, we're looking good on time, so.
We're doing all right? Okay. Thanks, Leah. Hi, everybody again. I don't know if any of you saw, I've been kind of bustling around in the background here. Basically, this recipe is super easy, right? We're gonna make raspberry syrup with these frozen Washington red raspberries. And then we are going to make our own lemonade in whatever way you want, right? Like if you want to make it fresh, we made the lime juice, the limeade the other day with the fresh squeezed lime juice and the simple syrup, you can do that. If you want to get country time and do that, if you want to buy it already pre-made in a jar or a can or a bottle, whatever you want to do. We're basically going to make fresh syrup with the raspberries, which is super simple, and then we are going to just let that cool and then mix it with lemonade and have a little bit of basil in there, and it's going to be a delicious drink. So just going to give you guys a short show you what these frozen raspberries look like. I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever bought frozen raspberries from the store before, but they look just like regular raspberries. Oh, there goes one. They look just like regular raspberries, and they're just as delicious. They're just frozen, quick frozen. So we're gonna take 2 cups of these and put them in a pan on the stove. I'm gonna bring my camera over and see if I can show you guys. So basically just putting 2 cups of raspberry on the stove in the pan, and adding 1 cup of water and just boiling it for about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes until you get just kind of reduced to where the berries have broken down. Sorry for the bad camera work, everybody, but basically what you're gonna do is once you boil those raspberries down, you need to remove the seeds to get the juice, because the one thing about raspberries is that sometimes the seeds get stuck in your teeth. And so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna show you right now, is to remove the juice, the seeds from the juice. And so, prop it up a little bit here. I got this handy dandy tool. I'm pretty sure I got this at the dollar store, y'all. It's just basically like a super fine mesh strainer. I use this thing for everything. I use it for when I get canned beans. I put the beans in there and I, let it, like, rinse them through the faucet to get the juice out of the beans. If I'm, for my rice sometimes, for brown rice or for like harder grains, you want to soak them first or to rinse them off first. I always use this. This thing is probably the best money I ever spent, right? And it probably was the cheapest too. So what you want to do with this is get something like a quart container like this. You can use anything that's just heat resistance, because remember, you were just boiling the raspberries in the water, so it's going to be really hot. So you want something that is okay for heat. So this handy dandy quart container works just fine. I'm putting it in my sink, over my sink, just because it's easier for me. I have a small kitchen. And then what I do is just really slowly and simply put the raspberries in there, little bit at a time. And you probably can't hear it, but the juice is kind of like dripping out, right? And so then I just take a spoon and I make sure that the juice gets out while the raspberry seeds stay in. And it's kind of a slow process. I'd say to do the whole 2 cups of raspberries with 1 cup of water, it might take you, I don't know, 5 to 8 minutes, right? Because, and depending on how, thorough you want to be about it, I would say get as much juice as you can. But if you're in a hurry and you just want to get it done quickly, you can do something, you can do it really quickly, right? But the idea is that you kind of like get the juice out, keep pouring in the seeds in the pot, and keep just letting the juice come out. And eventually what happens, if you can see, the juice is coming down, but that's going to be hot, right? And so what you're going to need to do is, once you get all the juice out, you're going to need to let it sit for a while. Don't put it right in your refrigerator, because it's so hot that it's going to actually throw off the temperature of your refrigerator. And so what you want to do is you just want to let it like sit out on the counter covered so there's nothing getting in it for a little while. I'd say until it gets to be about room temp, and then you can put it in the refrigerator or the freezer to cool it off a little bit. And to give you an idea, just to show you guys, this is what the seeds end up looking like. It's like super thick. I tried to eat it. It's delicious, but it also is, it's all seeds, right? But what the juice ends up looking like is really nice. It's just raspberry juice. That's all it is, right? It's just, it's a little thicker than regular water, kind of like a simple syrup thickness, but it's just the raspberry juice, and it's delicious, but it's tart. And so what I wanted to tell y'all is that the raspberries have their own natural sugar in them. If you were making this and you wanted to make it, say, for like a kid's party or something where you wanted it to be more sugary, you can add sugar to it to make it really, really sweet and syrupy, but it's totally unnecessary, right? The raspberries have their own sugar. And so the idea is that you don't, we've got this lemonade thing, and we're not really putting very much sugar in it at all. And so what we're gonna do then is, hold on, let's see how I can set this up for y'all. So basically, once that sugar cools, you are going to take a picture, and this is actually my Ninja picture because it's the only picture that I actually own. And so you're gonna take a picture and you're gonna take some fresh basil. And so today I went and bought at the local little garden store, this is spicy basil. So I'm really excited to try this. And I just keep it in my kitchen. I just literally find like an old container, put some water in the bottom of the container and just keep the basil in there. And all I do is I just feed it water from the bottom, maybe once a day, just a little bit of water. And it keeps this just keeps growing in my house. And I'll show you what happened to the one I bought a couple months ago before the quarantine. It is huge now, right? But I got basil for days. If I put it outside, it gets too hot and the bugs get it. But if I leave it in my kitchen, it's awesome. And so right now, what I'm gonna do with this nice basil plant, look, it's gonna look crazy, but I'm just gonna tear it off and throw it in there, right? And I try and just get the tops. If you put a couple stems in there, that's okay. But look, this is what the plant is for, right? As much as you thin it down like this, it's gonna grow back, right? And if you just wanna buy a bunch of basil at the store, that's okay too, but just don't be afraid to use it, right? And so I'm gonna make this a basil heavy beverage. You all don't have to do it, but I put about that much basil in there. I don't know if you can see it. And I take a muddler, right? If you want to use the back of a wooden spoon, if you want to use just some tool, that what we're going to do is we're going to smush down this basil and we're going to mix it with this raspberry syrup. So the whole recipe calls for a ½ cup of raspberry syrup. I'm just going to do a little bit, about a half of that. So a ¼ cup of this raspberry syrup. And I'm just going to mush up, really just like smush, smush, smush basil in there. And really what you want to do is you want to get the oils out of the basil. And you just want to get the flavor in there. You don't need to chop it up, right? Like you don't need little chunks of basil in your drink. You just want to make sure that that basil is opening up. You're going to start to smell it as you're smushing it. You just want to make sure that it's opening up in flavor into that raspberry syrup. Nice and good. 30 seconds to a minute. And then you're going to add your other ¼ cup, right? And then all we're going to do from there, y'all, super easy, is we're just going to add 4 cups of the lemonade that you chose. So I already made some lemonade. Like what I did is I got this Natalie's lemon juice. All it is literally just lemon juice. If you look at the ingredients for the lemon concentrate that you buy frozen in the freezer, a lot of it has high fructose corn syrup in it. I don't like that stuff. I just want the lemon juice. I just don't want the hassle of having to squeeze all the lemons, right? So I got this lemon juice. I did 1 cup of lemon juice, 1 cup of simple syrup, which is just 1-to-1 boiled water and sugar. And then I added, I think I did 3 cups of water on top of that. And that's what I made this with. And I'm just dumping that straight into this pitcher that we did the basil and the raspberry syrup with. And it's just making some delicious, delicious raspberry lemonade. And I want
color. It's so pretty.
You know, it's so pretty. It's something like, y'all, I'm telling you, I opened my fridge this morning and I was so excited for breakfast because I was like, oh, I got raspberry lemonade. Like, amazing. So look at, and you've got some chunks floating around in there of the basil, and that's okay. What I'm gonna do to kind of plate it, or however you wanna call it, like making the cocktail, literally just gonna take some ice cubes out of the freezer and pour it in there. And now I also wanted to tell y'all, excuse my armpit, sorry. What I wanted to tell y'all is that if you want to do this individually, like you have your raspberry syrup, you don't want to make a whole pitcher, you can individually muddle some basil and some raspberry syrup into your glass and then add the lemonade on top of that. You can add sparkling water. You can do a ton of stuff with it. just be really careful because that raspberry syrup a little goes a long way, right? And so here we are, pouring it in there. And I am going to go ahead and slice some lemons for a garnish, and I'll show you guys afterwards, after Leah's done, what it looks like with the garnish and everything pretty on it.
Renee, we've got a couple questions. Colleen asked, could you add the basil to steep with the raspberries while they simmer and then remove the basil when you take it off the flame?
You absolutely could do that. For me, I really like the fresh or aromatic flavor that it gets when you muddle it in, and that fresh flavor. You can add the basil. That's getting into a little bit more like shrubs and syrups and like how things kind of break down as they're heated. I think that absolutely you could do it, and I encourage you to play around with it. I would also say that like for this recipe specific, putting the basil in afterwards is just really about like smelling it a lot more too, and like getting that that aromatic to it.
And also, if you're making a big batch of it and you want to, and you don't want the basil leaves, you could also leave it to infuse and then strain it before serving if you don't want,
That is such a great point, Rainey. Thank you for pointing that out. Absolutely. And part of the fun of those frozen raspberries, I meant to tell y'all, like I love it's one of my favorite fruits in the world, and they go bad so quick if I don't eat them like all the same day when I buy them. And so part of what I love is that you can use them in things like this. And also, as I'm going to show you, they're the best little garnishes because they're already frozen. So you just throw them in there and they just add extra fun to the drink. So cheers.
Who doesn't want extra fun,
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Are there any questions, Rainey?
I was going to ask, and you might tell us this when you come back to show us the garnishes. If somebody wanted to make this into an easy cocktail at home, like a low ABV drink or just a regular cocktail, what spirits do you think would go best with it?
Well, I think, I hate to take the bait, but like a raspberry vodka is probably pretty delicious, or a citrus flavored vodka, right? Something that's gonna like take the back seat, I would say, to where the flavors of the raspberries and the lemons really come out. If you wanted to try it with some gin, that might be interesting. But I would say if you were gonna do that, you might wanna switch up the basil for some other herb. I would think that this would go really well with maybe some lemon thyme. Would be amazing in this. And I think that would probably even maybe go better with the gin than the basil.
And mint also. Mint would be really good if you wanted to do like a raspberry mojito.
Yeah, and then you would add actually rum for the mojito, right? And you might even want to make it a little sweeter because mojitos tend to have that sugary base to them. And so if you're going to want to make this raspberry syrup into a mojito, yeah, all you would do is kind of muddle the raspberry syrup with some mint, add extra simple syrup, and put your white rum on top of that.
Ooh, we got two other comments. Somebody asked about limoncello, which I bet would be delicious.
Holy cow, yeah.
And then she also asked, could you make the raspberry juice in advance and freeze it, then have it on hand to make this anytime? I would think, yeah, right?
I would think absolutely, yeah. I'll say like this raspberry syrup, a little goes a long way. And so like.
Put it in an ice cube tray.
Hmm?
Yeah, and
raspberry ice cubes.
absolutely. And if you were going to do that, what would be fun to play around with, where my brain is going, is that you might want to reduce it a little bit more, even still after you like pour it into here, pour it back into the saucepan on real low heat and reduce it a little bit more so that those ice cubes are going to be more like bang for their buck.
Rachel's busy over there. Rachel, we want to see what you're making. Give us a picture. We want to see how you're doing. Anyone who's cooking. What are you working on?
I just threw the chicken in after searing it because I had thicker breasts. So I seared it on both sides and just threw the chicken in, and then the vegetables aren't quite ready yet. So everything's in the oven really. So nothing really to show.
That's awesome. Thanks. Sorry to single you out. I just see you working over there. I love it. My stuff is almost done. Thank you, Renee. And you were talking about that fine mesh sieve. And I got to say, I tend to point out sometimes what I think are kind of kitchen essential tools. And I have one of those too. And I think that's just an essential tool to have in the kitchen for sure.
I use it for so much. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like for so many things that it's not even intended for. And I legit think I bought it at the dollar store at some point. Like, so essential.
So my food's just coming out. Let me grab it. So we got this nice crispy okra. You can see it has some nice color to it. And then I'm gonna bring out my corn cobs. They should be good to go. Let my chicken go for just a little longer because they're pretty thick breasts too. What you could do if you have chicken breasts that are too thick and you want them to cook faster, you can butterfly them to where you cut through the breast, open it, and it's only half as thick right before you sear it, or you can just cut it in half through like the parallel to the cutting board. So right through the breast that way. And that's with any thick meat. If you want to speed up the cooking process, do the butterfly technique. Look at this corn. Oh man, I can't wait to eat this. Buttery deliciousness. Well, mayonnaise-y deliciousness. It's not buttery at all, is it? All right, so I'm gonna put this on the side. And see, I got 2 of them here. Whoop. Looking at my fridge, aren't you? It's not a very interesting fridge. Got my little New Orleans apartment here, you know, my little shotgun. My floor cleaner's coming to do his rounds. All right, these look great. Okay, you could also do this like with foil packets with frozen corn if you don't have fresh. Let me grab my chicken out. These should be good to go. They got some nice color. Let me show you. I ended up adding a little water to my pan because I didn't want to add more oil, but it was starting to kind of get burny. And so because I needed to cook a little longer, I added some water, and it also gave them a nice kind of, let me show you a little kind of color to it, which is nice. So chicken, you want to cook to 165. These should be good to go. Generally, you want to let it rest a little bit. Let me turn off my fan here, my oven, so it's not so loud. And I'm going to show you a fun way to plate it to make it a little more interesting rather than just having a breast of chicken on your plate. And it's also a nice way to watch your portion sizes. By the way, I did want to mention that Claudia did mention, and I appreciate that between chia seeds and raspberries, the seeds for some people might not be able to digest them, and or it might be too fibrous for some people to have both. If you can't have raspberry seeds, you could have definitely strain it after you do it with the coconut milk, after you blend it with the coconut milk like Renee did, to get those seeds out. And obviously, you know, you don't have to do a chia seed pudding, but do take that into account, especially if you're not used to that much fiber. In general, though, most of us need more fiber in our diet, so it's a good thing, but you probably know your body the best. Okay, so now I'm gonna cut my chicken breast on the bias. So I'm just gonna have my breast right here on the cutting board, and I'm just gonna cut it in nice thin medallions with my knife at an angle. And then it makes it look bigger on the plate, and it's just a little more fun. Okay, so we have our sliced chicken breasts. Let me just put some okra on here. Again, you can do any grilled, roasted vegetable you want.
Debbie, feel free to turn on your video and audio, and we'd love to see your food. Same with anyone else. If you want to show us your food, all you have to do is turn on your video and unmute yourself, and you'll automatically show up.
Love seeing it. Okay, so I put my corn on here, I put my okra on here, and now I'm just going to take about half of my chicken breast and fan. What was that?
What'd you say, Debbie? Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, but now you're on mute. Let's
Debbie, I'm unmuted. Debbie, you're
Unmute now.
okay.
Ooh, that.
Okay,
Yum.
so I did chicken wings.
Yum.
I'm not an okra fan, so I did asparagus and I did my salsa chunky.
Yum.
Okay,
That
and
looks
this one-
awesome.
And this is my, can you see the corn? There's my corn.
Yum.
Ooh, that looks great. I can't wait to see if you like it. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Thank you for showing us that. That's awesome. I love seeing when you make food. All right, so now I'm gonna take some of my chicken breast and just fan it out on my plate. And I'll show you what I mean by fan it out. I just kept it in the order that I cut it, and I made a nice little fan, like a deck of cards almost, right? And it's just a fun way rather than just having a big chicken breast on there that you can do. You can do this with pork tenderloin. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of the sauce to it as well.
Leah, Wendy asked if corn is done on the grill, about how long would it take? I'm guessing that would probably depend on the heat of your flame, but is there a rule of thumb, Leah?
Yeah, I think it would probably be actually about the same amount of time, 15-ish minutes. Yep, would probably be perfect. I mean, I do corn on the grill a lot, so I would say that's probably good. Okay, let me, I saved a little of my fresh parsley just to brighten it up. It was looking really brown until I added a little of that nice mango sauce, and I added some fresh parsley to it. So let me just see if I can kind of show you a better view of that. Right, there we go. Isn't that pretty? All right, yum. I think that's that. Look at that, we're perfectly on time today. So thank you all. If there's no more questions. Oh, Renee, you were gonna garnish your drink. Let's see it.
So I put some fresh or some frozen raspberries in there, so they're floating around. Here, let's see if I can show you, like, how about this? Hold on. Oh wait, this way. In the light. And I just sliced up some lemons that I had laying around and garnished a little basil. And look how beautiful.
You know what's
It's
so
so
good if you wanted to make it a cocktail but not an intense cocktail is you could top it off with champagne, and I bet that would be awesome.
Rainey, you are a woman after my own heart.
Well, I'm seeing your house after this to take a picture, so maybe I have a tiny little split of champagne. Maybe I'll bring it. Leah, somebody asked if you're going to show the chilled pudding. I know it's probably still taking.
I forgot. Yeah, actually I am. Here you go. It's actually pretty set. So I want to show you. You could do toasted coconut as a garnish, but I'm going to do just a little bit of raspberry and some fresh mint because I'm not a big coconut. I like coconut milk, but I'm not a huge fan of like shredded coconut. So I'm just going to do a little bit of mint and some fresh raspberries, super simple. Look at that, isn't that cute? You can do some toasted nuts in there. I'm gonna try it right now. Let's see how it tastes. You guys can watch me make a mess. Let's see. You're really gonna like that. You're gonna have to stop me from eating this for dinner. So that's awesome. It tastes just as good as it looks. I can't wait to eat it. So super simple chia pudding. I hope you all can make that at home, and you can get really creative with chia puddings too. Kind of like overnight oats. It reminds me of that in a way. So we have our beautiful chicken. And by the way, that chicken is thebomb.com, as I like to say. It's delicious with that little mango sauce. And obviously we have our nice veggies that were roasted super simply. We have olive oil in it. It's a nice balanced meal. Tina did ask real quick about health benefits of chia. Chia has a lot of omega-3 fatty acids and a lot of fiber. So a lot of healthy, it's really good for your heart. It's very good for your heart and your digestive system.
And this cocktail or mocktail is so packed with vitamin C, literally none of the viruses are even gonna come near you. It's crazy.
One other thing that's great about chia,
and you know, that's what,
if you live in a hot place, and something I love about chia in the summertime is it's super hydrating because it clings on to, like, I think something like 40% of its mass in water. I might be getting that number wrong, but it holds on to a ton of water. So it's a really great way to help you stay hydrated.
that's a good tip too. And you know, I really do, Renee mentioned the vitamin C. Adding the raspberries in there is a great way to add in that vitamin C into your diet. So thank you all so much. This was a ton of fun.
So one more question. Is chia not good for men? Did I hear something like that? I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, that's not, that's what I would call pseudoscience. It might have to do with estrogen or something, but there's no science to back that. There's a lot of random stuff like they're out. So thank you for asking, but they can eat it. Thank you all. This was fun. I can't wait to eat it. So had fun. Thank you
guys.
Look out for that email, for that link to the recording tomorrow morning, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Renee, can you put our social media? We'd love to see pictures of your finished food. Rachel, throw it on social media if you can. Tag us.
Yeah, our social media, our hashtag is cooking in quarantine. I'm putting that in the chat. And our Instagram is NOCHI_grams. You'll also see this in your recap email tomorrow with the link to the recording. But just as a reminder, that's it. We love seeing what you made, and we will always share it. So tag us if you do. Have a great night.
Thank you. As Colleen's